A lot of people watched it, but nobody's watching day to day all day unless you're me and just love this stuff. Procedures are okay, but we want to know, where do you stand? And so I think the more that politicians stop trying to be politicians and be people, then that will engage voters. We reject alternative facts, so come on in here and let me educate you on the facts. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Political Briefing. It's me, your host, QuentinRJiles. But if we are going to be friends and I'm going to be your political BFF, then you know you got to call me Q. Guys, today has been a day, has it not? We are on day 4 of the Derek Chauvin trial for the murder of George Floyd. Lots of testimony to get into, a little courtroom drama that happened down there in that courtroom with the jury had to be dismissed, then brought back in. And so we'll talk about all that throughout this live and get you all the way caught up on what happened today at the trial. First off, I just want to check in and see how everyone's doing. Hey, Michelle Miller, I see you down there on Facebook. Mrs. Shamika, that Tammy Thurston, Tamra Thurston, Victoria, I see T-Sipper. T-Sipper need to be working on them choir robes. Let me see, all things, what? Antonia, hey, how you doing? Wanda Proctor, I see you. KSW Williams, what's going on? I see you on the Facebook. Laura S.J. Single, hey, everyone, welcome on in. Ms. Shamika say, cooking some pork chops and homemade fries. I just got hungry. I just got hungry by that comment. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for being here every night, really, because you could be anywhere, but you chose to be here. So let's get into what happened today in the trial. Like I said in the beginning, in the opening, it was day 4, lots and lots of testimony again. I think the 2 or 3 things we should probably really just think about or talk about at least is the paramedics. The 2 paramedics, they testified today. And the sergeant that was kind of like in the manager position that showed up to the scene, the one that the dispatch called. Remember, we talked about that a couple of days ago, I think on day 1, when we found out about that dispatch call, when she said, you know, you can call me a snitch, but blase. And she called the sergeant. So we heard testimony from him as well. But I'm going to start with the paramedics because they went before the sergeant. Then we'll get to the sergeant and the kind of drama that happened in the courtroom today. So I was kind of surprised at how blunt one of the paramedics was. Now, the first one that testified, he was the driver of the ambulance. So he wasn't the one. Remember in the video when the paramedics get there, they actually check for a pulse. Not that one. Okay. The first one was, you know, he basically gave his testimony, what kind of calls they were getting. He testified to the fact that, you know, when he got there and he saw George Floyd, you know, he looked lifeless. He was unresponsive, which we all saw. So that was that. That second paramedic, babe, let me tell you something. Mr. Man wasn't pulling no punches. He said George was dead, like in unequivocal terms, not talking broadly, like straight up. He looked dead when I got there. He didn't have a pulse. We got him in the van. He never regained a pulse. Like cut and dry, which means if everyone, let me say this disclaimer, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But based on that EMT's, no, are they called EMT? Paramedic. Based, because I learned today, EMT and paramedic is 2 different things. They was going through that credentialing and all this other stuff. It seems to me like the defense be trying to like come at people credentials, but anyway, that's another story that I really don't want to tap into. But I learned today that an EMT and a paramedic is different. EMT is a lower level of certification, if you will, and a paramedic is more extensive training, longer school, that kind of stuff. So the paramedic was like, look, when I got there, I checked the pulse. Buddy was unresponsive. He looked dead. Checked the pulse, no pulse. Put him in the rig, no pulse. Got him down to the hospital, no pulse. So basically, if we take that testimony, that means George Floyd died on the scene. He didn't die in the hospital. He died on the scene underneath the knee of Derek Chauvin. That's what that testimony says to me. That's what the testimony says to me. Now, when we push in a little further and we get down to the sergeant. So the sergeant testifies, and here's where the drama kind of came into play, because the prosecution, which the prosecution is the lawyers for the state, prosecution defense is, for Derek Chauvin, since he's being charged, his defense. The prosecution was asking the sergeant, kind of ran through this long list of, what's the use of force and how do you make certain reports if you get them, and, so forth and so forth, leading up to the question of, based on what you saw, would you say that was an excessive use of force? Well, the defense was like, objection, Your Honor. So, Your Honor is like, well, on what grounds? He was like, sidebar. Now, normally we don't hear sidebars anyway when lawyers in court have sidebars, but because of COVID, if you've been tapping into the trial, you'll see them on like headsets ever so often when they're having a sidebar. Because in normal times, we wouldn't hear it anyway. It would be, the lawyers go up to the bench. They, Your Honor, they do a little whisper thing. They figure that out. They argue a little bit up there, then move on about their business. So they're doing it via the headset. Well, I guess it got so testy, or not so testy. That's the wrong word. I don't want to give you a false impression of what happened. I guess the defense really wanted to argue this objection, and so there was a request to dismiss the jury so that they could argue this objection, before the judge. So the judge dismisses the jury, go outside, like not dismiss for the rest of the night, but dismisses the jury so that they can argue this. Now, I was watching Court TV. Now, the reason I chose to watch Court TV because they were streaming it all the way through. I didn't know if CNN and MSNBC, all of them was going to do it. But I'm glad that I started watching Court TV because I believe that those anchors, they have lawyers. Like, so every time something happens where we get a pause in it, they're explaining what's happening. So this is how I'm learning some stuff. I'm like, baby, I could be a lawyer. Cameron Dudley, thank you so much. I'm going to pull your super comment up. We're going to get to it. Let's see. I finally made it back. I am very on edge for the outcome because if they say this man is not guilty, I will be beyond angry. I'm already angry watching it because George should not have lost his life. Absolutely correct. First off, thank you for the super comment. Welcome back. And you are absolutely correct. I would say, breathe, sis. I'm not allowing myself to get angry. I'm preparing myself for the absolute worst, which is him getting off with zero accountability. But I hear you, and thank you for that comment. So the judge dismisses the jury, tells them, step aside. So the lawyers are explaining this on Court TV, basically saying like sometimes this happens because if you start to argue an objection, you don't want to hurt your case, meaning you don't want the jury to draw an adverse inference based on what you're arguing. So that let me know that the defense was nervous. The defense for Derek Chauvin was nervous about this answer and about this line of questioning. So he was trying to limit the scope or limit how much the prosecution could ask the sergeant, which to a certain extent he kind of won. That was the drama because I was like, oh, child, now what had happened? What is it? So that was the drama that happened. So he's still in. So jury come back in. Jury come on back in. Come on back. So he still gets a chance to ask him, basically in a very limited scope. The judge told him before the jury comes in, you can ask this single question of, should force have been stopped, or in this type of situation, should it have stopped? And so he asks him, and not sheriff, excuse me. Man, I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of his title right now. Sergeant, there we go. The sergeant says yes. So boom, there it is. Again, we already know this stuff, but there it is. Laura S., thank you so much for the super sticker. You say, thank you so much for these updates, Q. They are so helpful. How has it been for you following the trial? Don't forget your goalie gummies. Yeah, I'm actually figuring out ways. Thank you so much for asking that. I didn't realize today, one of my interns asked me the same thing, and I didn't realize that it was probably taking a hold on me because I'm just like, go, 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 go. So I am actively working on how I can get rest and decompress in the background so that I don't burn out or, whatever. So thank you for that. That was brought to my attention or brought up to me today. So I haven't figured out what that looks like, but yes, I'm working on it. And the goalie gummies, we will talk about the goalie gummies. Thank you so much for the super comment. If anybody wants to give a super comment, you're on Facebook, you can definitely do that, get it pulled up, and we'll get your comment on the screen. So the prosecution was able to ask that question of the sheriff. He says yes. Of course, the defense decides to cross and basically poke holes in it. What I see right now based on the defense's questioning, the defense for Derek Chauvin, asking the sergeant, like, if there was a crowd or if the officer's life was threatening or something to that fact, how would you assess? What would you do first? Would you render aid or would you take care of the situation? What I'm gathering, the case that the defense is trying to make, we haven't heard it yet. We'll hear it in the closing statements. But based on all the questions that I've heard him ask, it sounds like he's going to make a case that George Floyd overdosed, right? That it wasn't that Derek Chauvin killed him, that George Floyd overdosed and that they weren't able to render any aid because the crowd of people yelling at them, check his pulse and all this other stuff. It was like an angry mob type of situation. And so they had to continue to assess whether to render aid to George Floyd or deal with the situation in front of them. I don't know if that's the argument he's going to make. I'm just saying, based on the questions that he's asking, every time the defense asks a question, I'm asking myself, why would he ask that? What's the purpose of him asking that? Because again, they're all building up their case, right? So that's what I think he's going to try to argue. That's what I see. Clearly, we know the prosecution is going to try to argue or is arguing that Derek Chauvin murdered him. That's why they brought the murder charges. So, excuse me, we shall see. We shall see what happens. Y'all know I'm gonna stay tuned and stay updated on it and be watching that thing. Thank you for that earlier comment. Yes, I will still be, I will take steps to check in with my own mental health and make sure, literally, no lie, y'all can't see the floor, but I was definitely on the floor. I had to take me a little nap about an hour ago. So that was a part of self-care. But we'll figure out some other stuff too, to make sure that I'm just all the way there and I don't have to take another week-long break because, it's such a consumption of all this information. But I thank you. And I thank y'all. I thank y'all so much. I thank y'all so much. Right, all things Antonia, an angry mob is what happened at the Capitol. Correct. Somebody said on Twitter, if they had rendered aid, the crowd would have calmed down. Correct. All those things. Correct. So, I'll be updated or not be updated. I will stay updated on the goings on of the case. And we'll be bringing it back to you if Jesus says the same. I'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. to talk about it. I keep forgetting to bring the Golden Gummy bottle up in here. I really keep forgetting to do that. Also, guys, I haven't talked about it in a couple weeks, but y'all know book club is coming up. Book club is next week. So if you signed up for book club, be looking out for an email from me very shortly with the Zoom link. If you want to sign up for book club to review the book that we read, you can do that. Where's the book? I left it in there as well. There's the link right there. You can sign up for the book club. Also, if you want to get the Goalie Gummies, here is the promo code. They're giving 15%. There's that. And if you want to join Patreon, come on down to the Patreon. You can do one-on-one sessions with me. You can do, we chit and chat. You get to sign up for one-on-one Zooms with me. If you join the Patreon, that same link will allow you to join my Patreon and come on over down to the Patreon family and all those good things. So guys, I've had a great time giving you this information. We will be back tomorrow. Well, again, if Jesus says the same, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about, forgive me, Lord, the George Floyd situation. Until next time, friends, dissent, not disrespect. I love you in the Lord, and I'll see you later. A lot of people watched it, but nobody's watching day to day, all day, unless you're me and just love this stuff. Procedures are okay, but we want to know, where do you stand? And so I think the more that politicians stop trying to be politicians and be people, then that will engage voters. We reject alternative facts, so come on in here and let me educate you on the facts.